Hi, everyone. It's Joe Veneri, the host of Fit Insider, the show where I talk with the entrepreneurs, executives, and investors who are redefining the business of fitness and wellness. Today, I'm joined by Marc Zionts, a leader in nutrition coaching and education. In today's episode, we talked about the company's focus on behavior change, the decision to develop software tools to help nutrition and health coaches automate their business, and the importance of deep health to overall well-being. Let's get into it. Hi, Marc. Welcome to Fit Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Joe, and delighted to be here today.
Excited to talk today. And just to kick things off, can you give the listeners the quick background on Precision Nutrition and how you got involved?
You bet. So Precision Nutrition has been around for just over 15 years. And we are known as the leading company for online education, training and certification, and software tools for nutrition coaches. I joined the organization just over a year ago. And unlike a lot of the people that come onto your podcast, Joe, I have never professionally worked in health, wellness, and fitness. I've been a software, a tech guy, and a private equity guy for my career. However, I'm also a lifelong athlete and nutrition geek. So I kind of define it as a total mashup of my personal passions and my professional experience. So I'm super fortunate to be with the PN team.
Yeah, that's a great perspective that I think you bring to it. Coming from the software background, kind of digging into the scale of the company at this point. You mentioned joining a year ago. How big is the company? How many employees, coaches, clients, things of that nature?
Yeah, so PN is, as I mentioned, over 15 years old. We have over 100 employees in the organization. We also work with contractors. Uniquely and fortunately, ever since day one, we've been founded and run as a remote company. So that kind of played into our hands given the current situation. So over 100 folks distributed through predominantly the US and Canada, with about 60% of our workforce in Canada. So that's a little bit about kind of timing and size of the organization.
And when you start to think about the coaches and the clients and, poking around the website and looking at the different products, can you just break down the product lines and maybe the business model, how that works?
You bet. So there's really three kind of distinct areas, and they're complementary, if you will. So first of all, when it comes to education, training, and certification, we offer a course. Our primary course is our level 1 course, which is, think of it as an incredible introduction to nutrition and behavioral change, and I'll talk about that later. We have a master class called L2. So we've got our kind of certification business, and along with that, we're now doing more and more specialty courses and guides. So that's one component, education and certification. A second component is software tools for professionals to use in the practice so that they can serve their clients better. So that's element number 2, a software. So the first one's very much based on learning management systems. The second one is software as a service. The final element is more of a B2C offer, and that is where we do direct coaching, and we do 2 cohorts a year. The goal of that is to test the efficacy of our curriculum and software. At the same time, gather data for research purposes as well. Now, when you talk about scale, before this year even began, we've trained over 70,000 coaches, and we've directly coached over 100,000 clients. So some significance in terms of the reach. The goal we have is to get to as many people as possible. So by training coaches, and over 70,000 of them, they have all their clients. So we think that the reach that we have in the marketplace is quite significant.
And I think that's an important part, thinking about the nutrition landscape when it comes to either coaching or, different programs that people can follow to, hopefully get their diet in check and improve their nutrition. How do you think about Precision Nutrition differentiating itself in that landscape? Is there even anybody that you would liken yourself to, whether it's in nutrition or otherwise, in terms of that business model, or is it, really trying to set a standard separate and apart from what might currently exist?
Yeah, so I think we're really different than other companies. I think the biggest difference is is the how of our business. And so we really focus on behavior change and habit forming. And it's all rooted in over 15 years of practice, research, data, and science. So what we believe is that nutrition is vital to deep health. And we define deep health as it's nutrition, it's movement or exercise, it's sleep, it's stress. And it's really helping people understand how to change their behaviors. Because at the end of the day, what we've learned is diets don't work, counting calories don't work, measuring food doesn't work, meal plans don't necessarily work. They all work while you do them, but they tend to be temporal. What we're trying to teach is long-term behavior change. So that's how I think we try to differentiate ourselves. We're nutrition agnostics. We're not saying there's one way or there's only one thing you can do to get healthier. There's lots of ways. That's not, the real essence is what's going to work for you and what can you do on a sustainable basis.
The kind of digging into the behavior change piece, when you think about that's a consistency across all those various aspects of health and wellness, whether that's exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress. This is a point I wanted to get to later, but it kind of fits in nicely here. Why do you think it is that we think about these things or approach them differently in their own silos, right? You have, personal training and fitness instructors. You have, now they're starting to become a push into sleep tracking and even sleep coaches in recovery, nutrition being, separate from that. Isn't it ultimately the same whole that we're trying to address? So why are we kind of picking them apart to speak to them individually?
Yeah, so I think you raise a great point. I think it may be where people are starting. So if we think of our clients, over half of them start in the world of exercise. So that, let's just say they're a personal trainer. And why do they want to learn about nutrition? They really are good at what they do. They're really good at training and coaching people on becoming more fit. What they've realized at some point is that you can't exercise your way to fitness alone. As we like to say, nutrition's the other 80%. Right. So now what we know is if you're not recovering, you're not going to exercise well, and it's hard to have good nutrition. And by the way, how does stress weigh into this? The number one reason people don't eat the way they want to has nothing to do with hunger. It has everything to do with emotional stress and eating out their anxieties, if you will. So it is the whole person. So I think over time, you'll find people thinking about that. And I think you're seeing more and more companies talking about that. It may just be where you start. If you go to somebody because you're having problems with sleep, I think in the future, that sleep professional is probably going to want to learn more about the other areas so they can say, I can help you, but you know what? We need to work with you as a whole person. And if you can get all these pillars in balance, you're gonna live a healthier life, a happier life, and it's going to be easier to sleep when you're taking care of the whole person. So I think it's a place where people get to. They may start off in different places, but people need to become aware of all these elements over time.
And so when you think about it, the coaches that are coming to you, to, a lot of personal trainers, as you mentioned, who want to kind of advance themselves in their skill set, offer new services to clients, how is it that Precision Nutrition has gone about kind of legitimizing itself in the space as it relates to fitness? It's kind of easy or even a slippery slope to maybe not snake oil per se, but like pseudoscience. So for Precision Nutrition to have carved out this category and be a leader in the nutrition space and also legitimize itself as kind of a leader in that category in education, what was that process like?
Yeah, so I think that we have a domain expertise around nutrition that we've gained authority in over time by publishing data and science-backed research. But I think what we've also done is we have PhDs on staff that are behavioral psychologists. So we've also proven that we can take the nutrition, but we can teach people how to coach it. So it gets back to, you can know the domain inside out, but if you can't teach people how to coach it, if you can't teach people how to get great outcomes, it's not that helpful. There's a fallacy out there about, hey, if I just provide people information, they'll be able to act upon it. And that's just not the case. So I think what's enabled us to have success and be credible is the mirroring up of getting results over time with domain expertise. And we've always touched on these other pillars about movement, sleep, stress. As we develop those more fulsomely over time, we'll probably be working with more and more domain experts, but try to apply our methodology of behavior change to those domains.
And so when going through that process, a coach, for example, they're not just going through the course, maybe doing the book work, doing the online modules, whatever it might be. There's like learning the leadership of coaching, behavior change, how to apply that as part of it. Is that accurate? And kind of, can you speak to what that looks like in action?
Yeah, so it is very accurate. We, as part of our education, there's case studies. There's a lot that goes into this methodology. It's really understanding what it takes to help people change, getting down to why do people want to change, kind of the psychology of it, and then trying to teach them skills and habits, that they can do and that work for them. It's easy to get, rah emotional about this stuff and say, food is fuel and just measure calories in, calories out, and you're done. Well, that's just not how life works. I mean, food is a lot more than fuel. Food is social. Food is cultural. Food is family. We don't eat the way we want to because we have anxieties, or we have stress, or we don't exercise because we don't want to go to the gym because we don't feel good enough about ourselves right now to even go to the gym. It's amazing how many people say, I'll go to the gym after I lose some weight or after I get in shape. It's like, wait, you got to start somewhere. So it's just being able to get down to those. What are those root reasons why people want to change? What's the deep reason why they want to change? Can you help them uncover it? And can you start getting them on a path very incrementally, little actions to start moving in the direction that they want? And that's what we found that works. And that's what we teach our coaches how to practice in their business.
I thought that part was really interesting and significant, the leadership and coaching behavior change piece of it, because there's so much that's lost in just the certification piece. So, coming from a background where was a group fitness instructor, personal training, all of the performance enhancement and USA weightlifting and you name it, certification, got it. But there was none of those courses teach you about leadership and coaching and behavior change, a lot of the important aspects that go into it. The other piece that I thought was, sorry if you wanted to jump in.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Just that, the other piece that I thought was really interesting was the developing of software tools to help these coaches train their clients. And one, from a business perspective, having that recurring revenue, which is important. But two, giving them the tools to help them build that business. If they're building their business, that's helping you in the long run. How did the software piece evolve, and what are the operations from the software piece, knowing that's kind of like your forte? What does that look like today?
Yeah, so what we realized is once we trained and certified a coach and they wanted to apply this, what they've learned, to their clients and help them change, that if they wanted to deliver them content every day, they want to deliver habits every day to them, that would be a whole lot of work for them, to start doing and try to communicate. So whether they have 10 clients or 20 or 50 or 100, it gets exponentially harder to do that. So what if we could give the coaches a software tool where when they sign up a client, they go through their various intake, but they can put them on a program that will deliver them a curriculum that will help them address the areas that they want to change, and do that in an automated fashion, but give them ways of looking at their feedback, because there's journaling in there. It has a messaging tool in it. There's communications that are, built into it. There's analytics. So it becomes a platform to give them, if you will, some leverage in their own business, because everybody that I know that enters this world of health and wellness, at the reason they started is they want to help people, but they also need to run a business. So if we can help somebody help more people and have a better business by having a software tool that helps them deliver curriculum, that helps people change, get great outcomes, and at the same time helps them have a better business, that's really what motivates us to deliver our software to help our coaches.
And I think that part now, given that you alluded to this earlier, we're recording this amid the COVID-19 outbreak, a lot of things changing, a lot of uncertainty in the system. But that piece, Precision Nutrition is a fully remote company. And obviously with the software and the coaching, the delivering the curriculum, this is very well suited for a socially distanced world. How have you seen that play into, the ability of coaches to continue running their businesses and maybe how that impacts the business going forward?
Yeah, so great question. So some of our coaches were running a totally remote business. And so when this happened, it wasn't a big change. Others were running very much a physical business in which people would see them in a gym where they worked or in their own facility or studio, and they had a pivot. And we've tried to work very hard to help them make that pivot. And then others were kind of in a hybrid model, kind of a mixture. But I think what's important to understand is business as usual going forward is history. I believe that organizations are going to be focused on creating a resilient model that can be physical and or virtual and meet their clients wherever they are. I mean, nobody's going to want to be in the situation again where they have to change overnight, and clients don't want to be stranded. I mean, what I think at the end of the day, a client wants to know that their health and wellness providers have their back. And so, and by the way, in this time, if I think about the client, being able to take care of yourself in a situation like this that we're living in right now, it's a lifeline. I mean, we're dealing with stress and angst and uncertainties. And so being able to continue in some routine and take care of yourself can help you get through this. So I believe that for our coaches that were remote, they were well positioned. Those that were all physical had to quickly learn for survival and to help their clients survive this period. And those hybrid folks, they were kind of used to it. They just had to pivot to the full time. But I do think this is the future. And I don't care if you're a full remote business or you're a physical business, you're gonna have a mixture. And by the way, there's a huge social aspect of getting together at your box or at your Group X course or your gym. And that will continue in the future in a safe way. But people still, some days they may not make it in and they're going to want to have an option. Or if we get to the other side of this and there's another pandemic or another resurgence, they just want to know that they can go back to they have another alternative. Nobody's going to want to be exposed in the future.
Yeah, I think it's so many pieces in there to probably dig into, but one being that it can't be an afterthought. This ability to have, whether it's remote or, go these long periods of time, the stretches without meeting in person, or just know that those other revenue streams, it can't be something that we kind of think about down the road and continue to push off. And, we know in the back of our minds one day we have to get to it, whether that's because even before this, let's be honest, there was the kind of waves of change that we saw that digital was coming, remote coaching, online, whether it was education or otherwise, and now very much getting pulled into the future here. Have these changes, we say that some of these things were in place at Precision Nutrition before, but has it made you look at the business, and are there areas that you've identified that you want to change and even kind of double down on going forward?
Yeah, so let me talk about this from two angles. I'm going to talk about it internally for 1 second, because I want to recognize our team for a second, and talk about how we're addressing client requirements. So as I mentioned, we've been a remote company since the first day we were started 15 years ago, and I think we're really good at it. That being the case, it's still different today because all of a sudden people have kids at home that weren't necessarily at home. Those could be young kids where childcare is not available, or they could be school age kids, or it could be kids in college coming back to the house. So life has changed even with your remote company. And so we've tried to recognize that and be accommodating, to our own team. As we think about, our clients, we've also worked hard to be very empathetic and supportive. So, that's either, we created some programs, some payment plans, relief to clients that were having hardships, or may have wanted to take this time now to study, improve skills, but they might need a bit more time to pay. So one of our core values is focusing on doing the right thing at the right time in the right way. This has given us that opportunity to do. And so I think we've tried to be as helpful as possible. I'll give you an example of this. In March, when all this COVID was starting to happen, we took our Pro Coach software to anybody that wasn't using it and said, if you want to get started, we'll help you get started. We'll give you an onboarding webinar series, Q&A. You can learn how to use it. We'll match you with a mentor, and you can have the software for the next 3 months for free. So we wanted to help people get to a more remote business. So, and what we found is actually there are a lot of people that have said, okay, I'm getting some unemployment, or I'm fortunate enough to get paid, or fortunate enough to have some money put aside. This is a good time to improve, to learn something that I've always wanted to learn. So I think that by being sensitive to the challenges people face, we've been able to help them, and ultimately they'll be able to help their clients as we work through this. So I think we've tried to do things both on the outside while recognizing inside the company too that we have to be aware of our own people and their challenges too.
I think that's important to mention that, it's even now, work from home is not, in some ways it's kind of glorified as, you have this freedom and you can make your own schedule, and it's going to be so fantastic as compared to, having to go to the office at all times. But under kind of forced pretenses where, as you mentioned, kids are at home, everything's happening, the stressors of, kind of the outside world placed on top of that, it's certainly not normal circumstances. So accounting for that is really important.
Yeah, but by all means, even though we're remote, I still would normally travel a lot to meet with partners or prospective partners with the private equity firm that owns us. With some of my key execs, we get together on strategy sessions. We have a once a year company get together where we all just get together to kind of celebrate and be with each other and not just be emojis on a screen. We had to cancel it. It was in April, so we made the call. So that's disappointing. That's our year of that we get together for a week and basically bond. Very little business content, much more about enjoying each other. When you push those things up, that there's a tax with that. I mean, that's tough. We are humans, and by the way, this is, even though we provide software to help coaches, this software is a tool to help serve your clients better. That human interaction is still important, whether it's messaging, remote, in person. We believe that human element is still so important in this process.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. There was actually a few weeks back, I talked to Ali Aradi, who's the CEO of Tonal, and he was mentioning that, there's so many incredible things in his case that technology can do, AI, you have that in the home, but there's something that it can't replace, which is the empathy of a human, that interaction, that understanding. Maybe you slipped up on, whatever the meal plan was for today, or your goals for this month. Maybe you missed a workout because the kids were sick, whatever it might be. A machine doesn't really understand it that well. A software doesn't really understand that well. So that having that person that's there, in his case, personal trainer, in this case, a nutrition coach, is really important. It's not really replaceable.
For sure. I'm a big believer in having tools, measurements, metrics, if they work for the client, if they help you collect data, if they help the client collect data. But then at the end of the day, It has to be processed by a human. If a coach is behind there and they have more metrics so that they can coach better, great. But they're not mutually exclusive technologies and services.
And so thinking about now, obviously with COVID in mind, and maybe even before, what you might have had on the company roadmap when you think about continuing to grow, that's providing value for, in your case, a couple different cohorts, the individuals that are getting the nutrition training, the coaches that are getting it, the software business. How do you think about the roadmap looking forward, and how do you continue to innovate and provide value?
Yeah, so for us, we are a company that's always continually improving our core curriculum. So for example, late last year, we came out with the 4th version of our level 1 course. And it was really a total redo. It's not like we tuned up a few pieces. We decided that we could get better results by changing a whole lot of things. So there's this one, this one thread is improving the curriculum and the tools, but also expanding curriculum over time. So the way I see it is our IP, it really revolves around methods for coaching behavioral change. And that framework, we plan to apply to more areas of deep health and more fulsomely develop that, just like we've done in nutrition. So that's what we will do over time. And at the same time, within nutrition, providing more specialty courses and guides and tools. Some of these we give away for free. For example, we have a great macro calculator that people can get for free off our website. Now we have a professional version that our clients get. So there's a freemium version, if you will, and a pro version. We introduced a course on macros, and if you bought the course, you got the pro version, and you didn't have to be certified in our core L1 course. Recently, we introduced some courses, one on plant-based eating, but just for people that were clients already. We did one on intermittent fasting, which we opened up to people that were interested in classes. We'll have some more courses coming up in the future. So it's really improvement as one column of curriculum and software. It's expansion of courses. And then it's expanding into these other elements of deep health, but all kind of within the framework that's helped us help clients get great outcomes and help coaches get those outcomes for their clients. And so it's ambitious. And we have a team of software developers and curriculum developers and content writers, and I'm humbled by them, and they're awesome, and they're all about the mission. And maybe that's the one thing to say here is that people aren't at PN because it's just a job. They're there because they know we help people change. They know we help people get great results.
Yeah, and kind of clicking through the website and doing some research for this and digging in a little bit, a lot of the folks look like they subscribe to the lifestyle as well. So from, as you described it, someone who's passionate about exercise and fitness and nutrition, and this was kind of the culmination of a lot of your interests and passions. It certainly looks that way for the team as well.
Without a doubt. And it's across the board. It's not, it's however they define it, whether it's just being outdoor more, or they may have been a former college or professional athlete, or maybe they come from special forces in the military. I think, people are attracted to the fact that what we teach aligns with our values, and that includes trying to live a healthy life.
That's great. One thing from a business perspective I wanted to touch on, to get into the weeds a little bit. And I think it was 2017, the company took on a private equity investment from BV Investment Partners. Can you just talk about how that relationship came to be, what that means for continuing to grow and capitalize the business, and what their involvement might be at this point?
Yeah, so Precision Nutrition was started by John Berardi and Phil Capagio, and they started this business up really as without capital, if you will, but given that they built a great business that was always profitable. So when 2017 rolled around, there was a lot of interest in the company from outside investors, both strategic and financial. and they came to the decision to sell off a majority of the company to an outside investor. So they remain investors and on the board of our company, but the majority is owned by a private equity firm. So it was less about needing access to capital, since we were a growing and profitable organization. And it was more about liquidity, if you will, for the original investors. So we were very fortunate in that there was a tremendous amount of interest in the company when we went to the market to sell. And we were able to pick a partner that aligned with our core values, that believed in our mission, and would essentially allow PN to continue to be PN, but in even a bigger and better way than it had been before. So they're a wonderful partner. They're a financial partner. So their expertise is around finance. So what's happened since we were acquired is we have significantly grown. We've improved, I think, how we operate as a business, but we've stayed true, to who we are, how we work, and the culture of our company. And the way private equity works is they hold or own the company for a period of time, and then they're expected to return a gain to their investors, which are typically insurance companies, annuities, municipalities, other institutional investors. And at the end of all that, somebody else may be the financial owner of the company. What we're trying to do is make sure we stay true to who we are, execute on a strategy that we believe is sustainable, that we're doing the right things in the right ways, no matter what the ownership structure is over time.
Yeah, I think and with that, it kind of speaks to, having John originally founded the company and Greg bootstrapping and growing, and then being in a place to, extract that value, and now focusing on continuing to provide value going forward. Changing gears a little bit, one thing that I wanted to touch on as well, you mentioning that, you're passionate about the space with respect to kind of health and fitness. Looking at the industry more broadly, and given the topics that we talk about on the podcast and in the newsletter, is there an area of white space or opportunity that you think about is worth pursuing, or is growing at this point, or maybe even just interesting to you?
Yeah. So for me, it's not something that is novel per se to say this is the white area that doesn't exist. I think it's more about the integration of deep health and sustainable living. We live in a pretty crazy world that just became a lot crazier, and it's getting back to that: take a breath. What's important to you? How can you live your life that way? So I think it gets down to that holistic approach to deep health. And I do believe there's a lot of opportunity there, because I think it's missing in so many people's lives. I mean, let's face it, if you have a health issue, you go see a doctor. What's the average length of a doctor visit? It's about 7 minutes. They're not going to tell you how to get healthy. They're more inclined to prescribe something to you that if you need it, you need it. But it's kind of like, let's move on to the next patient. Where do people get healthy? Where do people find that life coach, that health coach that can really help guide them? And I think that's where the real opportunity is. And I know this isn't so new, if you will. It just hasn't necessarily been executed on well. So I think if we can bring behavior change, software, we can bring it to a broader audience. We can reach more people and help people get to a place where they can enjoy themselves and enjoy the way they're living their lives.
It's kind of that convergence of the Eastern and Western into one, and helping people find and define what health means for them, I think is so important. Like you mentioned, a trend that we've seen, but nothing that's kind of been maybe operationalized, or certainly not scaled, and maybe it's not something that's meant to be scaled, but helping broaden that reach and impact more people.
Right. I mean, if you look at the numbers, even if we've been trying, we haven't been successful, right? People aren't getting healthier by the numbers. People are becoming more obese. There's more people with type 2 diabetes. Heart disease is is growing in people aged 25 to 49. Life expectancy has gone down even before COVID, right? And that's, that in its lifestyle.
And moving to wrap up here, we'll get you out of here on this. Tell listeners where they can learn more about precision nutrition.
Great. Joe, first of all, I want to thank you so much for your thoughtful questions and for having me on the show. And if people are interested in learning more, you can check us out at precisionnutrition.com or follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And we give away a lot of great information. It's free. And if it can be helpful to you, that's what we're all about in the long run. So we're delighted to be helpful. If it makes more sense to explore things beyond that, great. But we'd love more and more people to take advantage of the free information that we make available every single day. So thank you.
That's perfect. Marc, thanks again for joining us and look forward to sharing this with the listeners.
Great. Have a wonderful afternoon and holiday weekend.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's episode. For more from Fit Insider, visit insider.fit.co and subscribe to our weekly newsletter for insights and analysis on the business of fitness and wellness. Then, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. See you next time.